Hi guys, just before we start the episode today, whatever platform you are listening to this on, whether it be on the podcast, Apple Podcast, YouTube, whatever it is, please support it. Please like, subscribe, whatever you can do. We want to reach as many people as possible. So please do that and we'll get right into the episode. Welcome to another episode of the Chronic Comeback podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have on the show Julie Moran. Did I pronounce that correctly?
That was perfect.
Okay, we were practicing before, and I was going to try a French accent, but I'm not going to do it. So just to give you a bit of detail on Julie's story before we get into it, her health story began in 2015 when she took an antibiotic that left her in a wheelchair for over 4 years. And after going down the conventional medicine route, she decided to heal her body naturally. Today, amazingly, if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell she looked great. She's walking again and shares her own story online through her website and her Instagram, Julie's Healing. And now she's here to tell her story. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Okay, cool. Let's go back to the before 2015, if we can, and just understand a little bit about what life was like for you before then. Whenever I speak to people, it's quite interesting. There are some people who are like myself, completely healthy throughout their childhoods, and maybe had a few things. When I look back on things, I had like eczema and stuff like that, but it was pretty much healthy, and then something happened, and then other people were had things going on their whole childhood. What was it like for you?
I think I was one of those cases that I had a great childhood. I had no problems. I grew up in the south of France, basically just living next to lavender fields and singing cicadas and pine trees and on the French Riviera. I mean, it was an awesome childhood. I used to dance ballet quite a lot, actually. I used to go like 3 times a week and do maybe 6 or 7 hours of ballet per week. So that requires a lot of your legs, right? A lot of leg power. Never complained once. I used to, I was an active person throughout my childhood, and I didn't really have any problems. I think I started having digestive problems, but I think it's because of also the way we eat, I think a lot of people can relate to this, but it was all fine. And actually my problem started before 2015. It started when I was 18 and I left my parents' home and I started doing some studies after my baccalaureate. That's in France when you're 18. And then it was 2 year study and they were quite stressful. And then I started all of a sudden, and now I know actually that I took that same antibiotic that I took in 2015, but back then I didn't know. So I had a few urinary infections. I was treated with antibiotics. And then suddenly, when I was 19, then I started having like crazy pain on the soles of my feet. And I couldn't walk for a year and a half. And I was 19, like that's crazy. So, but I was into that whole, like you said, like partying mood. And I was just, doing I was so young and I was like, it's fine. But I did consult a lot of doctors, of course, because I had so much pain and I was walking with crutches, so to go to my studies. And the doctor said that they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And when they asked what I was doing for studies, I told them and they were like, oh yeah, well, that's it. That's the stress. You're just stressed, just go home and rest and it's going to be fine. And I was like, well, okay. So I continued seeing a lot of doctors and my frustration went up because my pain wasn't going away. And then they put me on Xanax, to calm my nerves. And I'm a nice person. I'm not like a crazy hysterical person. And the fact that they put a young lady of 19 years old on Xanax, to relax her nerves is just, So they put me on more medications. And I couldn't find answers. So I just continued living my life. And I think the beauty of a 19-year-old body is that you kind of heal, because you have so much, regeneration that's happening in your body every day that after a year and a half, I was fine. I didn't have symptoms anymore. And years passed, I continued my studies. I traveled the world a little bit. And one day I had another urinary infection. And I'm saying all this, but I didn't make the link back then. It wasn't clear at all. And I took another antibiotic, so the same actually. And then a few weeks later, I was doing some elliptic bike exercises. And then I sat on the couch, and then my leg froze and went into paralysis for 24 hours. And then, you know, you have that huge anxiety and almost panic that takes you, like, oh my God, I can't move my legs. So I went to see doctors again, and they again told me it was in my head. And they said, maybe you should consult a psychologist, you know, because obviously there's something wrong with you and we can't find out what it is. So I was very lost at this point, because I was like, well, this is not normal, what's happening. And somewhere in my brain something started to get coded in my brain that maybe I had something serious that the doctors didn't see yet, a kind of degenerative disease. You know, I mean, it started when I was 18, 19, then when I was 24, 22, and then again at 25. So I was like, okay, what's wrong with me? And when I was going out with friends and traveling, they could do stuff with their leg muscles that I wasn't exactly able to do. So it started, you know, the kind of the disability started to kind of progress, and I couldn't pinpoint what it was. And then I listened to them at some point, the doctors. I was like, well, maybe it is in my head, you know, maybe I'm too perfectionist. And I see this in a lot of healing stories also that I hear, and a few that you also interviewed on your podcast, that people think they did something wrong. You know, it's like, oh, wait, but I'm a type A personality. I'm super perfectionist. I'm an overachiever. Well, that's why I got sick. It plays a role, but it's not why you got sick in the first place. Like, people blame themselves a lot. So I started thinking I was the problem. And then I did my studies in China, in Spain. In Spain, I met my Dutch boyfriend, and then I moved to Holland to be with him. And I started my career there, my first real job in marketing. And then one day I was doing some exercise on the floor, some yoga, and my leg just went into full paralysis. And that was in 2015. So I was rushed to the ER. I stayed 2 weeks there. Impossible to walk. I had hallucinations. I had cognitive impairments, dizziness, brain fog, digestive issues. But the biggest problem with my legs, I couldn't walk without just collapsing. A weakness and a pain and a burning sensation in my whole muscles that was just unbearable. And I was 25, and I was like, okay, if they can't find something, like, they have to find something. It's been going on since I was 19, you know, they have to. Like, what's wrong with me? And then after 2 weeks, they said, well, we couldn't find anything wrong with you. It's probably in your head. Just go home. And they sent me home without a wheelchair. So I fell. And my dad just picked me up and then kind of carried me to the car. It was like, it's not real what you're experiencing, you know, just kind of get over it and walk. But I couldn't. So, you know, at this point, I'm a very open-minded person. And I was like, well, I do believe in conversion disorder. Conversion disorder is when you have something so traumatic happen to you that you actually have a symptom in your body, because your body is so powerful. You know, you have these people in developing countries, when they have something horrible happen to their family in front of their eyes, some people can get blind because of the trauma. So I was very into that. I loved understanding the brain and the body and how it works. And I was like, well, you know, I had lost my little sister when she was 17 in a car accident, and I was 20, and that was a traumatic experience. So I was like, well, you know, maybe my body remembered something, and maybe I'm expressing this in this way, you know? So I did 2 years of psychology. I went to a shrink for 2 years, and it was great because I learned a lot about myself, about how things work. And it was like, it was kind of a study on the, you know, on how people think in psychology. But 2 years later, I still couldn't walk. So it helped in other ways, but not in, you know, my physical symptoms. So after 2 years, I was like, well, okay, I gave this a shot. I'm going to keep on knocking on doors, on people's doors, on doctors' doors, because I need answers. And that led me to go to a doctor in Brussels. I don't know if you know him, Dr. Merler. And he's a specialist of ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, and Lyme. And he's had good results, but then, so with me, he told me that I had chronic Lyme disease, like a late stage of Lyme disease. I had done tests in the past, they were negative, and now they were actually slightly positive. That was the result. Like, your test is slightly positive. So, okay, we went on the route of Lyme disease. So I got a whole protocol. And in this protocol, I got cortisone pills, steroids. And the problem when you took that antibiotic that I took that made me sick is that combining, when you have this kind of toxicity, combining with that cortisone pill is a death cocktail. It's deadly. But they didn't know this because they didn't make the link, the doctors. They didn't ask me every time you got sick, what happened before? Oh, you got a urinary infection and you got that antibiotic, and that's every time what happened to you. They didn't ask this. So they gave me the cortisone. And then within the span of 3 weeks, I was dying. My boyfriend told me, Julie, I can't take care of you anymore because it's getting dangerous. Like you're falling on your head. He was carrying me from the couch to the toilet, to the shower, to the bed. He had to work. He was like, we need help. I can't do this by myself. So thankfully, my dad just retired at that moment. So I went back home to the south of France where I grew up. That was a healthy, safe environment for me. I went there, and the next 6 months, so that was in 2018, the next 6 months were truthfully the hardest of my life. I was surviving. I was fighting for survival. Every single day, my sole objective was to be able to wake up in the morning and check if my heart was still beating, and if I was still breathing. And I saw no one for 6 months. I saw only my parents and my boyfriend, Tim, who came to visit because talking to somebody was too much. It required an energy I didn't have. Lifting my arm was not possible. Brushing my own teeth was not possible. Feeding myself was not possible for 6 months. And I was 27. So that was hard. And then I called this doctor. It was in January. And the conversation lasted 4 minutes. And he was like, why aren't you here? Okay, I'm just going to send you a new, prescription of pills to take. And at that moment, I hang up the phone. And then I was like, you know what? I am done. This is the drop. Of all these years, I'm done. Now, I will not give away my power anymore. I will heal myself because it is somewhere within me. I did it when I was 18. I can do it again. And that moment was a huge shift for me because I stopped being a victim, expecting people to do things for me, to act a certain way and to bring me answers. So I stopped waiting for answers to come from outside of me. And instead, I took back my power and I was like, well, girl, you care about yourself, but nobody will care as much as you do. So you have to take your own healing into your own hands. And that's what I did. And that conversation on the phone was so disappointing that it marked that whole shift. And from that moment, it changed everything for me. I left the victim mentality and I became empowered. And I was like, you know what? I am going to heal. I am going to walk again. It's going to happen. And then at some point I was like, okay, what do I need to do how can I do that? And then with a small amount of cognitive capacities that I had, I started researching everything. I was like, I'm going to become my own doctor. I'm going to find these answers myself. So I bought a million books. I studied, my main focus was to study what are the conditions in which the body heals the most. That was like my job to do for my body. My body knows how to heal every day, but what can I do myself to help this process, to make it easier for my body to heal? So we all know that a steady sleeping routine is important, or eating healthy. But I was like, I want to know this scientifically and apply it. And every single day, I'm going to do my best for it because I had no other choice. Otherwise, I was dying. And then that's what I started doing.
And so, first of all, that's a crazy story. I've got loads of questions about what you've talked about before, but if you could take us through that the next part of that story. So when you said you were, where were you not working with anyone at this point? Did you not have like a maybe holistic practitioner? Was this all just yourself?
I did come across the work of Medical Medium. He was actually the first one that made me believe about his book. And I was like, wow, he tells me I can heal. So it gave me that hope. That was really the beginning of it. And then I started my Instagram at that moment, Julie's Healing. And the first video that I posted on that Instagram is me getting up of my wheelchair and doing a few steps. That was all I could do at that moment. And then I really connected with a whole community of medical medium and very kind people that were also going through not the same thing, but similar things. And I felt less lonely. And then by knowing these people and meeting these people just online, I came across other coaches from Dr. Morse. So it's more into the detox world. And so I started having a coach here and there. But it wasn't very much like that somebody was with me for all these years. It was just like I kind of was taking bits of information and seeing how I could apply it.
And you mentioned that obviously, so at the point where you were like, which I also want to talk about, where you were like, screw that, I'm not dealing with this doctor anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going and doing this myself. Like, what point did you like, how did you get to the like realization that you like needed to focus on sleep, and that specifically, was that just all through your own research? Yeah, it was.
It took months, years.
Yeah.
It took a while. And you know, I studied sleep, for instance, and I was like, okay, I know that my room needs to be pitch dark, no noise. It needs to be a certain temperature. It needs to have no Wi-Fi or no kind of frequency that's just messing with my body's frequency. I need to go to bed before 10 and not eat too much then, because that's when the body heals the most, you know, those hours before midnight. All of those things, I was like, then I do this. And then for a few weeks, that's what I was doing. And then when I gained a little bit more energy from this, I was like, okay, moving on to another thing. Screens, mental rest, for instance. I knew that there was no morphine that could equal the power of meditation, for instance. The mental rest and learning how that worked and the power of meditation was also one of the things that I applied in my life that really was incredibly helpful to give me those extra bits of energy so that I could move on to the next thing, healthy food. And, you know, kind of apply all this, that it wasn't too overwhelming at first, because at first, if you think about all these things, you're like, oh my God. But applying this every day in my life, it was very slow, I'm going to be honest. But I had that faith in me. I was like, you are, every day that passes, every breath that you're taking, you are getting closer to your dream vision of yourself. And my dream vision of myself was me walking out of the wheelchair. And I knew that. And sometimes 3 months or 4 months were passing, nothing happens. And I was in the shower. I was taking 1 shower a month because that was too much to handle. And I was in the shower and I was reaching for that shampoo bottle with my muscles, you know, and I was like, well, 3 months ago, that movement was, I think, a little bit more painful. You know, it was those tiny changes. It wasn't like, oh my God, I did this and then I walked out of my wheelchair. No, it took so long. But I had that faith. And that faith is really what kept me going every single day of like, I will heal. There is no question about this.
Sorry, as I was talking earlier, I remember this is what I wanted to ask you. Because I read that obviously you were thinking it was Lyme disease. That was what you thought it was going to be, but actually you ultimately realized that it was down to the antibiotic. How did you come to that realization?
So I stayed on the Lyme disease diagnosis, and then when I started applying all those concepts of natural healing, I started seeing improvement. I detoxed my body. I was living a very healthy lifestyle in a very healthy and health promoting environment. But then at one point I was like, I wanted to know if for my Lyme treatment, I had to start again a new protocol with herbs, and what could I do really to just go to the next step of like being really healthy. And then I contacted a French naturopath online that somebody recommended me on my Instagram. And her daughter's name was Julie also. And I don't know if that but I was really drawn to contacting that guy. And that guy changed my life because he found out what was wrong with me and that nobody else in the world could. So that was in October 2020. Wow. That was just recently. So we had a Skype, and then he asked me again to share my whole story. And I was like, okay, so we went through it all. And then at the end, he's a Lyme specialist. And at the end, he was like, Julie, I don't think you have Lyme. Oh my God. And I almost fell off my chair. I was like, what? Are you going to tell me it's in my head again? You know? And then he was like, no, not at all. All the symptoms you're describing are actually not really related to Lyme, but they're very much related to something called fluoroquinolone toxicity. And I had studied natural health for 5 years. Talking to all these people with chronic illnesses, I've never heard of a fluoroquinolone toxicity. And I was like, what is this now? You know? And he said, well, I need you to be very focus right now and think if there's one moment before you got all these muscle problems and leg problems that you took an antibiotic that is from that family. And, you know, I mean, I don't know if I guess you've taken antibiotics in your life, if you've been sick that much. You don't know the names of the antibiotics you're taking. They all have crazy Latin names and you just never really pay attention. So he sent me a list and he was like, did you take any? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And thank God I've been living for 8 years in the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is a very structured country and they keep records of everything. So I called my health insurance and I was like, I need to know a few weeks or months prior to when I was admitted at the hospital and I started being in a wheelchair, did I take that kind of antibiotic? And the girl on the phone, she was like, oh yeah, well, you did. It was actually 2 weeks before you were admitted to the hospital. You took something called ciprofloxacin. And cipro has been shown to have potential permanent effects on the nervous system and the muscles and then the nerves, as well as cognitive impairments. So pretty much everything that's on the insert of cipro of possible side effects I've experienced. And they say it can be permanent. So when she told me this, the girl she confirmed on the phone, I completely collapsed because it was pretty much over 12 years of medical misdiagnosis, of 12 years of it's in your head, you're the problem, of a Lyme diagnosis that probably wasn't the right one. And kind of everything made sense from that moment. I was like, it's not me. I took this that made me sick. And of course, my way of living and my mentality of overachieving and stuff didn't help because it never allowed me to rest so that my body could recover. But the initial problem wasn't me. And I kind of forgave myself because I was like, well, you're not crazy, you know?
So do you think, so what did you do at that point though? Because I wonder, yeah, could you tell us like what you did at that point? How did things change? Because you were already making improvements. Do you think you still could have got to the, regardless, do you think you still could have got to the position you are today, treating yourself the way you were?
I think with every healing protocol, there's really two sides of it. At least is the way that I see it. It's really like creating the conditions in your life that allow your body to heal the most, because the body is in itself very intelligent and you don't need to know exactly like, oh, is this supplement that I should take, or is this thing? We're a whole beautiful machine and we don't need like our little brain to understand the billions of processes that are happening in our body every day. So when you create those conditions, no matter what you have, your body will heal. And especially if you apply that faith that that belief that you are healing. And then the second pillar, I would say, of that is, of course, finding the exact reason of why you got sick and targeting to the exact thing. If it's mold, to the exact herb or supplement that can help you. Or in my case, with fluoroquinolone toxicity, it's a cell damage. So my cells were damaged at the mitochondrial level. So it was about repairing the cells, so with some supplements, but also magnesium, for instance. I had taken magnesium the whole time in my protocol, but I never mega dosed on it. And the French naturopath, he said, well, you have to start mega dosing on magnesium because that's the first weapon against fluoroquinolone toxicity. And I was like, but I have the feeling I did already. He was like, no, you need to mega dose. You need to. And when I started doing that, I saw crazy progress, and it kind of confirmed everything that, the direction that I was going towards.
As you're talking now, I'm like, what was the name of the antibiotic you mentioned?
You have a lot of them. There are like 6 to 8 antibiotics that are in that family. The one that I took is Cipro.
Yeah, and there's a longer name of that, is it?
It's ciprofloxacin.
No, I feel like I think I've taken that, but I wouldn't have had. I assume there's people who take it who don't have bad reactions to it.
Oh no, absolutely. Otherwise, it would be completely gone. But there is actually, the thing is that it's a diagnosis that's very not known. There was a class action that was done in 2008 against Pfizer, and they lost. They paid billions. of damage to the victims. And in 2016, the FDA itself actually issued a warning saying how that actually telling doctors that they should stop prescribing this medicine because the risks were, outweighing the benefits clearly. But doctors don't know; they still prescribe it, and that's the crazy thing. And since I've shared my story on Instagram, a lot of people message me. I get like almost a message a week saying, "Oh, thank God, because if you didn't share your story, I would have accepted Cipro."
Yeah,
it's just that dangerous.
Do people get that for Lyme disease? Do they get, is that
no Cipro and all the other fluoroquinolone antibiotics, they are very broad spectrum antibiotics that are injected with a fluoride molecule that makes them extremely potent. So it's when you have a big like kind of systemic infection that's what's recommended. I don't think it's recommended for Lyme. It's more like for chronic UTIs or sinus infections, so kind of mild infections that they prescribe it for.
Yeah, God. There was a documentary on it here in the UK, and there was this doctor, and he was observing a doctor's surgery, and pretty much everyone who came in for different ailments would just be prescribed antibiotics every single time. And he then came in and refused to dish out any pills, and just told them to exercise or to go and do cold exposure and to go and do all these things, and they actually got better results. So I just thought
wow.
Really interesting.
I think we got it so wrong. I think antibiotics are honestly, they can save a life. Let's be honest. It's an amazing technology that we have, and it's an amazing knowledge. But the over prescription of it is just, it creates so much damage. And especially when doctors don't know what you have. How on earth are you going to prescribe antibiotics if you don't know what the person had? That's just reckless.
Yeah. How are you feeling today? That was obviously October 2020. You're almost a year since that point. How has life been since then?
It's been very good mentally, in the sense that so first, when I learned about that diagnosis, I was like, okay, am I going to sue, this lab? Because obviously of all the years that I lost and all the pain I went through. And then I contacted a few doctors and stuff, and they were like, well, those labs you want to kind of sue, they're huge labs. You will need a lot of money. You will need a very good lawyer. You will need another 2 to 3 years that you're going to go into that fight. Yeah. And, I asked myself the question. I was like, I've already been in that fight for so many years. Now that I know, I want to move on. I don't want to be, So I think that shift also was really the last thing that I needed to leave that sick mentality behind, and that victim mentality and it is very much of a victim. I've been victim of poisoning. So, it's hard to let that go and to not feel that anger and resentment in your heart. But I've been continuing to heal, and actually, we created an app with my boyfriend Tim, and to help people heal. And I'm using it every day for myself. And I'm not 100% recovered, but I'm getting there. So it's just every day that passes, I'm healing more and more, and I can't wait to see until where I can go. And I mean, I used to be, dying in bed at like 1% of my capacities a few years ago. And now I'm working full days, going to the beach, swimming. So it's, I want to be like running, hiking, cycling, doing like those great, but I know it will come in time. Yeah. I think just where I am today, I'm so grateful for this already. So
it's actually really cool to have you on when you're not necessarily at, what people or you might class as 100%, but
no, not yet.
I think it's a lot more relatable to people, to me and to everyone, I'm sure, who's listening. And I mean, you've kind of like I've like started to expose myself. have you ever heard of it? I bought one of these Aura rings. Have you ever?
I bought this 3 years ago.
Really? So I had like because with my sleep, it's something I constantly need to properly work on and set the best I used to have terrible sleep routine, and now it's a lot better, but it's still not amazing. But my friend the other day, I'd heard about Aura Rings. I don't think it looks very good, but
I agree.
he told me that it just tracks everything like perfectly. And for him, he's recovered from chronic fatigue, and now he's in the position where he just wants to take his health to another level. So he's hit kind of where he's actually probably better than he's ever been, but he wants to be better than that. And I just think that's such an amazing goal to have. Is that what you think?
Oh yeah, I'm thriving for that every day. I think it's fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's maybe, I mean, before getting sick, I didn't even know I could reach this level of wellness. I used to have, digestive problems, and this has been like my digestion now is I can't even believe how lucky I am. I don't have any more digestive problems at all. And that used to just kind of ruin my life,
Yeah.
So I think that implementing those things and doing them every day and seeing your body responding to them is amazing. And I can give you some tips about sleep if you want. I've used Oura Ring for three years, and I wrote an extensive blog post about it, sharing all my tips. And
that would be amazing. I read a book called I think is it Sleep Smarter or something, or
yeah, from what's his name?
I think he talked about all the stuff that you talked about. So like exposing yourself to sunlight first thing in the morning.
Sean Stevenson.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I definitely remember his name was Sean. The correct temperature, and problem is like I like it really cool in my bedroom. My girlfriend likes it warm.
No, you should have it cool.
Yeah, I know. But also there's like, for some reason our mattress is like too hot. So I've looked, you could get these mattress coolers. And anyway, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. But
no, I think this is, I mean, everybody is always interesting about sleep, right? Because it concerns everyone. I think one of the most important things that I've noticed for myself for sleep, one is blue light blocking glasses. This is a non-negotiable. It's like, it's during the day and after sunset, especially. Like if I don't have, like, we are hooked on it with my boyfriend. We look like aliens and idiots, but we don't care. And we always have those. And if we don't, we can't sleep as well. And another very important thing that, I mean, there's a lot of tips online, but one that is often overlooked and that I saw for myself and for my boyfriend had a huge impact is grounding. It's grounding. And it's, I mean, we're by the sea now, like I'm overlooking the sea, and we're breathing negative ions in the air. And our sleep has been the best it's ever been in my life here. We don't wake up through we sleep through the whole night. So grounding is also connecting with nature, putting your feet on the ground is so beneficial for our health. And what's so funny always is that people look for external, like supplements and stuff, but actually it's just there available,
No, totally. I've actually got my feet on a grounding mat as we speak, but I'm doing that as I stare outside to like blocks of flats in London. We're actually going to be moving to Bali for the first half of
amazing.
And I'm so excited about it, because I think what you said something earlier about putting yourself in the best environment to heal. And right now I'm not in a good environment to heal, being in like a busy London, like grey city. It's not nice. But yeah, all of those things you were talking about, putting yourself in the best environment. What I actually really liked about what you said earlier was, and it simplified it a lot more for me, because I'm always trying to do everything at once, because I want to have the maximum impact now, but just focusing on nailing your sleep first and then moving on to the next thing once you've started to do that. Was that difficult though? Because you must have been like, oh, but I want to get better quicker. So if I do that as well.
I think that's a problem that's happening for a lot of people who went through chronic illness is, I think when you start understanding that resting and giving away that, that we are like, go, we're productive people. We're like, just want to be in the doing all the time. But that state is not healing. Actually, there's like brain wave states, like right now we're in beta brain waves. But then you have alpha and theta, and alpha and theta are brainwaves that you can access during a nap or meditation or the early stage of sleeping. And those brainwave states is actually when cell regeneration and healing happens. It's not in beta. So as soon as, for me, it was really understanding the scientific data. And when I started understanding this, I was like, well, the quickest way to recovery is to spend as much time as I possibly can in alpha theta waves. So that means meditating, stretching, looking at nature, being on the, grounding, all those things. And the more I started to do this, the more I recovered quickly. And what's so funny is that I've had friends and people around me that, witnessed my recovery, and now they're doing it. Years after, I've never told them anything, but now they're doing it because they're like, oh my God, Julie, we feel so much better. And there's always a potential to, bring your wellness and your health to the next level. And when you kind of find the key and you realize it's actually simple, you just have to have this, these little steps in your day. It's actually very empowering because you realize the power is within you.
Yeah, I earlier on this year I went to a Joe Dispenza retreat, and he talks a lot about the alpha and theta and delta and gamma, and
yes,
I realize I'm predominantly in beta, and I would say, even my sleep, I probably rarely ever get to those like deep levels. So no, it's really cool and inspiring to hear you talk about all of that stuff, because it really is resonating with me that I need to get out more in nature. Like, we have a park near us here, that's about the most I get out in nature. So where do you said you moved to the Netherlands? I didn't even know there were beaches in the Netherlands. Are there?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, I didn't know.
No, we're actually, no, sorry, right now I'm in Albania.
Oh, okay, cool.
So with my boyfriend we launched this app, right, Envol, and it actually allows you to create those right conditions for your body and track them every day. That's what we developed, and that's how I healed myself pretty much. And then there's like a score that gives you, it's a recharge score, and it takes into account your, time in nature, mental rest, sleep, healthy food, gratitude, and exposure to sunlight. And then if you do all this, you get a recharge score that is high or not. And what we say is that once you reach 70, you're in that healing zone. So 70 until 100 is that healing zone. And we keep hearing stories of people that are saying that it works. Like, it's very empowering, because it's like, oh my God, it's right here, and I can start right now, and I can start feeling better. So we launched this company, and then we were like, let's travel the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
So we settled in Albania. We came like a week ago, and next month we're going to be in Sicily. Just enjoying life, taking a swim in the ocean every day.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. And we'll definitely have to give us details of the app. Just a few more questions in terms of, like, I guess going back to like your darkest times, which it sounds like there was obviously a lot of them, not being able to walk. I mean, what I've been through, I never had that, so I can't even imagine what that would be like at those darkest times. How did you keep going? How did you keep moving forward? Like, some people, as we talked about before, might have just been told it's in your head, you've just got to accept it, and could have wasted even more time. Like, how did you keep going?
By educating myself. I think that was really what kept me going. When you read books about, like, obviously the book of Yolanda Hadid, that was just putting me straight back to depression. That was not the kind of books that I wanted to read. But then I moved on to the book of Joe Dispenza, right? How to become supernatural, or becoming supernatural. And I read this book, and the guy pretty much in this book tells you that you can do anything you desire if you start acting like that person of the future. And all those, cell biologists, also like Bruce Lipton and all these people, seeing the Heal documentaries, like really focusing all my energy, not in forums online of people being sick and depressed and not being able to see the light, and negative comments and all these things, because I knew how badly that was affecting me. But instead of focusing all my energy and attention on, how much power was in me and in my cells and in my trillion cells, and that each one of my cells was geared towards listening to my thoughts. And I was like, wow, I have so much power. Am I doing it right? If I'm thinking I'm not healing, this is horrible, well, my cells are listening, and probably that reality is becoming real. It's kind of making it even more real. So I think that was really what kept me going. It was to read those books. Like, I think Becoming Supernatural is a book I would recommend to anyone, because it just gives you so much hope.
Yeah.
And, you know, listening to podcasts like yours and healing stories and people who made it, and keeping your attention on the positive. And I know it's super hard because obviously I could not walk, but I kept it on the positive. I was like, I'm so thankful for my dad. I'm so thankful for the sky, the blue sky today, and that I have a bit of sunshine on my hand, and focusing on that feeling. Oh my God, doesn't this feel nice? You know, those little things, you're kind of changing your body chemistry. You are. And the more you do that, the more you're going towards that future that you want for yourself.
Yeah. Did you read the book You Are the Placebo as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great starting point.
Yeah.
Becoming Naturals. Yeah, amazing book as well.
Yeah.
What was actually really cool about your story, and not cool for you at the time, but sometimes we have people on the podcast, and I don't want to say lucky, because none of them have been lucky, but they're lucky in the sense that they got a doctor straight away that completely got it, or they had a mum or a dad that was that way inclined and just put them on that path straight away. Whereas with yourself, it sounds like it was the opposite. You ran into the wrong doctor, and that kept happening. What I've found over the course of speaking to people and myself, like, that actually cause like trauma for yourself when you have to go through all of that, because it starts to build that belief that something you said actually which completely resonated with me was you start to believe that there was something that there was wrong that they just weren't quite getting, which actually I know was actually the case, but in the end, but that belief makes it believe something like you think that you won't recover. There's something special about you that won't recover, and it's different to everyone else. Did you feel like that trauma helped really like cultivate that kind of belief?
Yeah, that was definitely not easy. But I mean, in hindsight, there's a quote that says, like, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And I do believe that everything we are put through is there for a reason, because there's something to learn from this. And the fact that my diagnosis should have taken 5 minutes to find out. It doesn't need rocket science. It just needs, like, okay, what did you take last month? Checking the insert of that medicine, seeing the side effects. Okay, that's exactly what you're having right now. It should have taken 5 minutes. But instead, it took almost 100 doctors, 5 years. And I'm wondering, isn't there a reason for that?
Yeah.
And then what happened, I completely changed my life. I changed my outlook on life. I changed the way I see things. I changed the way I consider and acknowledge people. And that taught me so much. And I mean, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And that is true. It's like you come back from hell, and there is a lot of trauma. And I'm not saying, I mean, when there's some people that weren't supportive at all, and I still feel that frustration, and I still feel that anger in my heart. But I'm learning how to, let that go. And I've suffered so much that I'm like, now I deserve to enjoy my life.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you probably wouldn't be in Albania now if you hadn't have been through all of that.
I would still be in the office working a 9-to-5 job, doing something I probably, that probably wouldn't resonate with me that deeply.
And then you probably would have, well, not probably, but you could have then got a different chronic illness from, the stress and
definitely
working in.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. I think you kind of already answered one of the questions I like to ask, which is kind of like, what are the ways in which your life is better now as a result of what you've been through? You've probably given us all your answers on that. Is there anything else that, your life now, would you say, is like better as a result?
I think it's the way also I consider people and the way I look at other people's stories. I used to be somebody that you didn't necessarily want to work with because I was so like focused on the wrong things, and I think a lot of people who went through a chronic illness, I was focused on work, and I had a set of values that were geared towards something that is not at all where they're going to now. And I don't know, I think I'm much more content with, I'm more content with less now. I just realized that happiness in life doesn't lie in possessions, like material possessions, or it lies in the simplicity of life, being with someone you love, loving yourself. appreciating the wonders that this earth has to offer. And a very important learning also that I had in my journey is obviously when I couldn't walk, we had, everybody has expectations of how life should be, of how a 25-year-old person should, act and behave. And when I was in a wheelchair and Tim was pushing my wheelchair, obviously we didn't meet those expectations of how things should be. When we were going on holiday, I told him, I said, like, I'm probably going to stay on the balcony of the hotel room the whole week because I don't have any strength to go outside, even in a wheelchair. And at first it created a lot of fights and a lot of frustration because you have these expectations. When you go somewhere on holiday, you need to visit that city, you need to do this, you need to do this. But then we learned over the years of, okay, happiness is reality minus expectations. And that realization of when you let go of expectations and you're like, well, the present moment is what it is with all it has to offer. And there's a lot it has to offer. You can always find something. Then you're happy, you're fine, you're balanced, you're centered because you're like, I'm not expecting something. I'm not lacking. I'm already whole and I'm already there.
Yeah.
And that kind of quote, happiness equals reality minus expectations. We've applied it in every area of our life now. And we're happier being simpler, It's just, it is what it is. And yeah.
Have you ever read the book Essentialism, or I think it's Essentialism? I
haven't.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of, it's loosely based, about what you said. But by the way, that quote's amazing. I think I need to write that down. Yeah, it's just around only focusing on what is like important in life, and we waste so much time on things that aren't important, that aren't actually contributing to our overall happiness. And if we just strip back, it's like I went away like a couple of weeks ago, and I know this is like maybe going around the house, but it taught me a bit of a good lesson. I went away and one of my friends came away with like this massive suitcase, and I just brought this tiny little bag, and I was like, I'm only gonna wear these few bits of clothes, and I was so much happier the whole time. And it just stripped back all that bullshit of what you normally have to deal with. And it just kind of like taught me that lesson, and like it reminded me of that book. Anyone who's listening, that book's amazing. I probably need to read it again. To anyone who's listening right now, who's going through like a really difficult time and who is in the, probably the worst time of their chronic illness, if you can think back to, where you were, what would be your advice to them at the moment to keep going and keep moving forward?
My advice would be to remember that the power is within you. Remember, if you cut your skin is healing without you having to tell it to heal. And this is happening in every system and every cell of your body. And if the only thing you can do is kind of trust yourself and your cells, that they know what they're doing. And remember that it is already within you, and tuning to that power, that you are whole, that you're not lacking anything. I think that's my best piece of advice. And I think this is the thing that I've noticed in all those amazing recovery stories. When people start to do this, they become unstoppable because they're free. They are already whole. They don't need anything.
That's amazing. I thought about that. I think about that actually quite a lot, that actually, when you do cut yourself, you do heal. Like, think there's just maybe something that's blocking you at this stage that you need to figure that out.
That can be belief. And a lot of times it's belief. I mean, when you're a kid and you sprain your ankle or you hurt your knee, it's like, oh wait, the doctor's going to fix you. No. Or the medicine's going to fix you. No. Or that food is going to fix you. No. You fix yourself. That's the beauty of life on this earth. We fix ourselves. The only job that we have to do is to allow the body to do so by creating the right environment. So if you have something physical you want to heal and you're partying until 4 o'clock in the morning and drinking alcohol and like not creating the right environment, probably your scratch on your skin is going to take 2 weeks longer to heal. It will, because the body is amazing and it's always trying to heal you, but it will take longer. So if you want to speed up that process, you need to surrender and to create the right conditions in which the body heals. And that is sleep, having a positive mindset, being in nature, resting mentally, getting off those screens and this like mental stimulation and trying to just like lower your brain waves. Getting sunlight, you know, eating healthy. I mean, that's obviously such an important point also.
I just wanted to see if I brought I've got my blue, they're blue and red light blockers. So they're like, yours like red. What are they? What brand are they?
The ones that I have?
Yeah.
They're True Dark.
Yeah, that's the ones I've got.
Yeah. Actually, the red ones are just blocking more of the wavelength of the blue light wavelength. So the red are supposed to be when it's completely dark outside. But in the day, you do need blue light for your circadian rhythms to be in check. You do need blue light is actually beneficial. And you have a lot of blue light at 12, you know, at midday, at noon in the sky from the sun. Yes. So you shouldn't block everything during the day because you do need that blue light still.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. I only wear them at night. Is that because I thought you said you were wearing them in the day? You don't. Yeah,
you can, but then they're different. They're just like they block like 40% of the blue light wavelength. Okay. You shouldn't aim for something that blocks 100% in the day. You can block less. Obviously, there's a lot from the computer and from the screen, so you can block a little bit. And then that immediately soothes you because you have a bit of a less of an eye strain and headache. And then once it's all dark outside, then that's when you should block 100% of the blue light.
It's crazy how much of a difference those things make.
Insane.
And I kick myself when I'm not properly using them. But that I'm watching TV, for example, and my head's starting to go like this. And normally I would be wide awake watching TV. It's amazing. Could you just I didn't know about the app. I think I'd maybe come across it online. So do people just download it through is it in the App Store? Like how would they do that?
Yeah, definitely. You should download it and then let me know about it. There's so you can download on iOS or Android, so the Play Store or the App Store. And it's literally, there's like a recharge score that takes into account this right environment that you can create for your body. And we've actually done a study in July of this year with 220 people. And then the study showed that the people that used the app and had high recharge scores actually improved on all health factors. Really? So they improved on everything, on productivity, on emotional balance, on physical ailments, physical symptoms, general sense of, wellness and health. So I'm a proof that it works because I used it obviously over the years. I didn't have the app back then, but I just used a piece of paper to write it. And we created an algorithm to that the score is relevant for people that are chronically ill, because also there was something with the Oura Ring that bothered me a little bit at the beginning, is that being chronically ill and being in a wheelchair, it counts your steps. Yeah. And every time it was like, be careful, or red, or like, oh, you're not doing anything and stuff. But for me, maybe some days doing 5 steps was doing a marathon.
Yeah.
And every time I told them, I emailed them, I was like, hey, I know this is geared for athletes and people that like kind of biohackers that want to take their health to the next level. But what about the people that are all the way down that, you're not considering us? And then what we did with Envol, with our app, is that we really took into account your current state of health. So we ask you at the beginning of when you first create an account, how is your health? Are you chronically ill? Are you on top of your game? Are you, maybe in between? And then with your answers, we actually tweak the algorithm that the movement that you can do in the day is actually adapted to your capacities. So if all you can do is 20 meters, then you will do a lot of movement that day, and that's good. And you should continue doing that. So it kind of goes with you according to how you feel.
I wonder if, because I signed up to Oura Ring like a couple of days ago, and I actually, there is an option to say that you've got an illness now.
Okay. Maybe they heard my message.
Maybe that's because of you. So what's the app called? Sorry.
It's called Envol. It's French, so ENVOL.
ENVOL. Okay, cool.
And we also have a toolbox in there. It's pretty much like all the tools that I use to recover, kind of the visualization music to tune into my elevated emotions, with Joe Dispenza, all the positive affirmations, breathing, and meditations. We created everything. Awesome. And we put it on the app. So it's, I mean, the meditations, I made them myself with all my heart as somebody who went through chronic illness. And yeah, it's, I mean, this project just fills my heart with gratitude because I'm doing something that matters, you know?
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Love it. So yeah, if people wanted to like connect with you, what's the best way of them doing that?
They can reach out to me on Instagram, I guess.
Yeah.
My Instagram is Julie's Healing,
Cool.
all in one word.
Awesome. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Been a great start to my day. You've definitely the cogs have been turning as you've been talking, and there's been a lot of like micro changes I want to make, and maybe a few things that I want to look at. So, and I hope, and I'm sure that will be the case for other people listening. So thank you so much for coming on and telling your story.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Appreciate it.